I please welcome Dr. Suliman Gargoum. Do we have him here, Dr. Suliman? Yes, our next speaker is an award-winning engineer, researcher, and an entrepreneur advancing AI and remote sensing for safer and smarter infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Dr. Suliman Gargoum.
My name is Suliman Gargoum. I'm a professor at the University of British Columbia in Canada, and I'm a co-founder of Reflektar Tech. So what I'm going to be talking about today is how we can use our minds, the human intelligence, the asset that all of us have in the age and era of artificial intelligence. So does artificial intelligence mean it's going to replace our minds, or does it mean it's going to complement our minds? And who's going to be better off making the most impact? When we talk about new technology, when we talk about bubbles, when we talk about trends, the best thing to do is to compare it to historic events. So when we talk about AI, one of the best things to compare it to is the internet evolution. So the internet evolution, the boom of the internet happened in 1995. So between 1995 and 2001 is when the boom happened. So there was a huge boom, as you can see in the graph here, and then there was the bust. The difference between a boom and a bust in an industrial setting, an industrial boom versus a financial boom, is there's lots of value out of an industrial boom, which is what is the case with AI. So by the end of 1995, people were still questioning the value of the internet, which might come as a surprise to some of us today, but this is a famous interview in the US.
What the heck is that exactly?
I'll let you listen.
It's become a place where people are publishing information.
Right.
So everybody can have their own homepage, companies are there, the latest information. It's wild what's going on. You can send electronic mail to people. It is the big new thing.
Yeah, but you know, it's easy to criticize something you don't fully understand, which is my position here.
Go ahead.
But I can remember a couple of months ago, there was like a big breakthrough announcement that on the internet or on some computer deal, they were going to broadcast a baseball game. You could listen to a baseball game on your computer. And I just thought to myself, does radio ring a bell? You know what I mean? It's just...
There's a difference. You can listen to the baseball game whenever you want.
All right. Do tape recorders ring a bell?
So that was 1995. Not everyone understood what the internet was. It's similar with AI these days. We're split into two groups when it comes to AI. The skeptical group that thinks it's the enemy and we need to fight against it, and then the other group, the more relaxed group, that think it's the biggest thing ever and we're gonna live in luxury for the rest of our lives. So one thing that we need to understand with AI, just like with the internet, is it creates an opportunity. So people didn't make an impact by creating or replicating the internet. What happened is people built businesses on the internet. They made value of the internet, and it's the case with AI. Now, one person who understood this more than anyone else at the time, again, we're going to take you back in time, is the guy on the right here, who we've all dealt with in some capacity. Founder of Amazon, Jeff Bezos.
Well, I think all internet companies, you know, the stocks are incredibly volatile, and but even long term. Long term, I believe that it's very easy to predict that there are going to be lots of successful companies born of the internet. They're going to have very large market caps and so on. I also believe that today, where we sit, it's very hard to predict who those companies are going to be. So, you know, you can make bets on these things, and I think that Amazon.com, if we're not one of those important, lasting companies born of the internet, we will have nobody to blame but ourselves, and that we will be extremely disappointed in ourselves. But there are no guarantees. It's very, very hard to predict. If you go back and look at the companies created by the PC revolution, in 1980, you probably wouldn't have predicted the 5 winners, the 5 biggest winners. There have been lots of winners, actually.
So this interview was 25 years ago. And he was right, and they did make the most of the internet. Now, some of the companies failed. The companies that were built on the internet failed. 48% is the statistic. of those founded in 1996 survived until 2004. But there is companies that still exist today that were founded on the internet. Some of them we know, some of them we use. So Google, Facebook, Twitter, X, if you want to call it, all of those were built on the internet. They're basically services that were built on the internet. So when we come to the AI evolution, AI didn't start yesterday, didn't start in the past 10 years. It didn't start when we were first introduced to ChatGPT. It started ages ago. There was a gradual growth, but now it's becoming a consumer-wide tool that every single one of us in this room is able to use and deploy. Now, the pessimist mindset is, and what's been mentioned today is, AI will take my job. This is the pessimist mindset. Even your termination letter might be written by ChatGPT, so you want to be careful with that. But that's the pessimist mindset. The entrepreneurial leader's mindset is,
if you're not engaging AI actively and aggressively, you're doing it wrong. You're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to somebody who uses AI. Your company is not going to go out of business because of AI. Your company is going to go out of business because another company used AI. There's no question about that.
And now with the big picture out of the way, I'm going to focus a bit. So what you need to do is you need to acquire the skills where you could utilize AI. You may use AI to make yourself and team more competitive, and that's when you actually start making impact. Whether you're an individual, a company, an institution, a corporation, that's what matters in today's world. Now, how do we learn how to use AI? Isn't AI just a prompt box where you just get whatever you want? The challenge is, this is basically the challenge, is most people use large language models and ChatGPT, for example, just like they would use Google, a search engine, which is where we're missing out on the big opportunity. That's not by any means where the full potential lies. The full potential, just like any other technology, AI requires some skills for you to be able to fully utilize it, and that's where you start making the impact. And technology, again, is only useful if you've got the skills. How many of you, who doesn't own this device? Every single one of us knows what a smartphone is. But what comes to mind when you think about a smartphone? What's the first thing that comes to mind? Communication, socializing. You know what the actual answer is? It depends on who you are. It depends on what your background is. Because if you ask your grandparents, when they see a smartphone, they're probably thinking something like this, making phone calls. That's the first thing that comes to mind. In today's generation, I don't even think making phone calls is the first thing that comes to mind. Checking emails, social media, it's not phone calls. And the difference is, your grandparents have different set of skills than what you do when it comes to the smartphone. They can answer phone calls, they can maybe send some messages, but that's about it. You've got a ton of other skills of how to fully utilize this tool. So what skills do you need to effectively use AI? There's obviously multiple different skills, but I'm going to focus on two of those. Number one is domain knowledge, and number two is prompt engineering. So when it comes to domain knowledge, as soon as AI, ChatGPT was launched, and before ChatGPT, people were questioning whether formal education was valuable by any means in the era of AI. And we heard stuff like, probably the only thing that you might want to study these days is computer science, until we realized that large language models are also capable of writing code, so ChatGPT can actually write code for you, and then people start saying, well, maybe there's no need for formal education anymore. And that's where the mistake is. To pull out the full potential of AI, formal education is actually a necessity. Domain knowledge, what I call it here, is a necessity. And the difference between the people using AI to its full potential and people using AI and large language models as a search engine is the domain knowledge. So I'm going to go through a quick example with you, the coding example, I call it. What I did is I wrote a code. I used ChatGPT to write a code. that reads a CSV file. The CSV file contains around 1 million lines. I asked it to filter out rows that had numbers more than 5. The numbers were randomly generated. They were between 0 and 100. So I just told it, find the cells that have values that are greater than 5. Very simple exercise. So ChatGPT went ahead. This was my prompt. And this is the code that ChatGPT generated. So just copied it, pasted it into this presentation. Code did exactly what I wanted it to do. It took 0.092 seconds to run Python code. Now, using my coding background, which is what I call the domain knowledge, what I did is I changed the way the loop was executed. So I replaced 3 lines in the code with 1 line, because I know what it's doing. And this is the line I changed, and I got the exact same results, but I got to do it in 0.005 seconds. That's 20 times faster than the code that ChatGPT gave me. So for a business, this might not sound significant, but for a business looking to scale, the difference is 100,000 operations, 4,200 seconds, which means over 100,000 operations, it's 4,200 seconds, which is 70 extra minutes of runtime. If you're doing 1 million operations, that translates to almost 12 hours of extra compute time. Never mind the electricity, everything else that you're spending just running this process. So this basically shows you the value of domain knowledge. You need to understand, you need to have the technical background when you're using or inserting those prompts into your large language model. The other thing is the prompt engineering, and some of you touched on this a bit during the day today, and prompt engineering is a skill that an entrepreneur leader must possess. So whether it's, again, on an individual level or on an organizational level, that's how to prompt your AI tools. And now it's growing into a discipline, and they're calling it prompt engineering. But prompt engineering doesn't start when you prompt the large language model. It's not when you type in. That's not when prompt engineering starts. It starts way beyond that. So it starts when mastering the entire interaction with the AI tool. So that includes the data that you feed it, the models that you build, and the prompt that you have at the end. So it's basically understanding how to guide the AI model to the solution. The difference prompt engineering, the skill that prompt engineering gives you is explained using this maze here. So this maze, you might look at this maze and think, the only way to solve this maze is to follow this red line. If you're good at prompt engineering, you might be able to solve it by having a breakthrough and significantly improving on the process. So that's basically what prompt engineering gives you. Prompt engineering, again, includes the entire process. What training data am I using for my models? The data preparation, what am I collecting? What type of data am I collecting as an institution, as a corporation? What model am I going to choose? What model gives me the best results? What is the prompt action itself? And that we'll talk in a bit more detail about this in the next 2 slides. The persona, the context, the references, the iteration, the organization, all of that is covered in the prompt that you give your large language model. So these are examples of those items in the prompt itself. Obviously, we're not going to talk about the training data that you're going to collect or the model that you're going to select, but the simple prompt, the end prompt that you're going to give the large language model makes a difference. So these are a couple of examples. If you're writing something as a customer service representative, you want to write an email, the persona is highlighted in blue. The task that you want it to do is in pink. The yellow is the context, and then the format is in green. It's not a Google. It's not just, because with Google, even the order of the words traditionally didn't matter. As long as you gave it, you threw it at the search engine, you threw the 5, 6 words, it was going to get you kind of where you wanted to go. With prompt engineering makes a difference. The order makes a difference, the persona makes a difference, the format, the context, and the task itself that you want the large language model to do. So these are just examples. A founder, business owner, customer service representative, head of a product department, depending on who you are, the context is going to make a difference, and the prompt that you give to the large language model is going to make a difference. So if you're interested in learning about prompt engineering, there are resources that are available for free. Andrew Unge, one of the pioneers of AI, ChatGPT prompt engineering for developers. He has an actual course that's for programmers who are looking to improve their prompt engineering skills. Prompting Guide 101, that's a Gemini document basically to help you how to format and produce your prompts. So with that, prompt engineering, domain knowledge, that's how we are going to make impact and make the most impact in the age of AI. So with that, I'd like to thank you all very much for your attention, and my contact information is here if you want to connect. I'd be happy to chat afterwards as well.